Tippi Hedren is in the house for Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night, and she'll be helping us out as we navigate through one of the most honored and beloved Alfred Hitchcock movies ever made, The Birds. Why do the birds come? Why do the birds do what the birds do? Maybe Tippi knows. Joe Bob Briggs, and tonight is a very special Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night because we've got one of the greatest horror movies ever made, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, a movie so good that no matter how many times you watch it and how many people watch it together and how many conversations you have about it, nobody can agree on exactly what it's about. Professors at universities write scholarly papers about this movie. Film buff magazines are full of theories about it, but we have an inside source with us tonight to help us get to the bottom of all these theories, and it's none other than the star of The Birds, Tippi Hedren. She'll be joining us at the first break to tell us all about the making of the flick. And anyway, I'm not going to say anything that gives away the plot. We always have kids watching who are seeing the films for the first time, but I will give you those drive-in totals, and then we'll get on with it. 3 dead bodies, 2 dead birds, multiple seagull dive bomb attacks, sparrow chimney invasion, playground crow attack, bird migration, bird flocking, exploding gas station, 2 car crashes, kamikaze seagull, 4 stars, a classic. Check it out, and we'll be here at the first break with Tippi Hedren. Sometimes those professors send me their papers, you know. The birds represent the overwhelming forces of nature taking back the world from a humanity that has grown twisted and out of touch with the earth. And you just want to go, yeah, and maybe it just looks really cool to see somebody pecked to death by rabid crows. Tippi Hedren and Suzanne Plachette in one of the many great dysfunctional love scenes found in The Birds. And I believe joining us right now, yes it is, Tippi Hedren from The Birds. Welcome,
Hello,
Tippi.
how are you?
Glad to have you here.
Well, thank
Take
you.
a seat here in our living room.
All right, right there. Was
right
it
here.
good?
Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night
All right.
is proud to have you.
Well, thank you.
And you know, in that one little scene, without ever saying anything directly, Annie Hayworth, the school teacher, finds out why Melanie is there in the town,
Yes.
and Melanie finds out why Annie is there. And it's not exactly the kind of story that audiences would have expected in 1963 after several months of all the ads promising Hitchcock's most disturbing film, was it?
No, you know, the whole relationship with Annie and Melanie and Mitch and the mother and all of it was really fascinating. It was well, the whole story was very, very different from the original Daphne du Maurier story.
Right.
Totally different.
But I think people expected to see dive-bombing birds, and instead they're seeing this really intriguing human interest story.
Really, you know, relationships.
Soap opera
and,
a little
yes.
bit. Did you know this movie was something special when you were making it?
Well, you know, I think everybody making a film thinks it's going to be special, but, you know, nobody goes out to make a bad movie.
Oh,
you know,
I know,
but
and it was a Hitchcock movie, so it's already a little bit special.
Oh,
but,
you bet it is.
But
yes.
I just wondered if you had any idea that, you know, all these years later, you would, like, it would still be on TV all the time. It would be at film festivals all the time.
You know something? I was so busy having this enormous responsibility because it was my first movie, and I was so busy trying to act and, you know, carry on this whole thing that I really didn't kind of get into, are we going to be a major, you know, is this going to become a, you know, a classic or you know, I didn't really think of it. I was just busy.
I want to ask you about Camille Paglia. Do you know her?
Oh, have you met her?
Well, I sort of. I've exchanged letters with her.
You are in for a great treat.
Okay,
this is going to be so much fun.
She's one of those professors that I was talking about a little earlier, and she's also a well-known author. And she wrote this book on the birds because Camille calls you the ultimate Hitchcock heroine. And I want to read a quote from this book. It's about the very first scene in the movie, and she says, "The symbolic transition from the titles is subtle but clear. Woman is the crow, her stiletto high heels the claws of rapacious nature. Melanie's black leather clutch bag, evocative term, is unusually long and lean, like a phallic rifle case.
Wow, isn't
you have any
she,
comments about that,
well,
Tippi?
I must say that I think Camille is an incredibly fabulous writer.
Yeah.
I mean, to get all of that, you know, I mean, it's
Is that what Hitchcock was going for? Did he ever mention any of these things?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
I don't recall that. But I think it's really fun for people to, you know, look at films and, you know, pull out all of these analogies and you know, similarities of another film to this film. And I mean, it's
But there was no phallic
the way
rifle
they do
case
it.
in your head.
Well, not in mine, no.
Okay.
No.
We'll be back with
We'll
Tippi
never do
Hedren
that.
after the ads. And I should also mention the man in front of the pet shop was Hitchcock, and those were his very own Sealy hair terriers with him.
Sealyham.
Sealyham. I thought it was Sealy-haired. Okay.
Oh, Sealyham.
Sealyham. Okay.
Yeah, Sealyham.
All right. Let me read you another one. Here's a quote about the scene in the bird shop. Okay. The pencil is the victory trident with which she spears men, as well as the trophy phallus that she knows very well how to grind down. So, in other words, do not mess with Tippi Hedren in this movie. And by the way,
then
aren't you,
or now?
Right. And
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that. In 90s terms, aren't you stalking this man?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah, but in a fun way, in a good way. Okay. It's an okay thing.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night and the Birds after these messages.
Tippi, you are quite a liar in this flick.
Well, only in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just the beginning.
By the way,
it's called sophisticated comedy.
Okay.
She has a great sense of humor. She's a practical joker.
And everybody lies in sophisticated comedy.
Oh, well.
By the way, I guess Tippi is not your given name, is it? How'd you get such a cute name? It's one of the cutest names in the history of movies.
Wow, thanks very much. My father gave that to me.
Really?
Yes.
It is. What is your given name?
My baptismal name is Nathalie.
I see.
Nathalie K. Hedren. And I guess it was just too much for my father to handle. So he started calling me Tupsa, which is sort of from what I understand, a Swedish term of endearment, like, oh, honey, sweetheart, you know, that kind of cute little thing you might call a little baby.
Yeah. I had a friend with a poodle named Tippi, but I think the poodle was named after you.
Thank you. That's all right. I love poodles. They're very smart.
Anyway, this was your first film, as you said. And how did Alfred Hitchcock discover you, as they say?
I had been doing a lot of commercials in New York. I was with Eileen Ford, and I'd been modeling for a long time. And it was during that time when television was really becoming very, very popular. So television commercials were divine. And one time I had 10 of them running at the same time, and
he saw one particular
one of them was a pet milk product called Seago. It was a diet drink, and it was a storyline. It wasn't just holding up a product and talking about it. It was a story, and apparently
what exactly did you do in the commercial to make such an impression?
Well, apparently the action that he attracted him was, I'm walking down the street and a little boy whistles at me, and I turn and react to him and smile, and that's what apparently caught his eye.
Really?
Yeah.
If you look at all his leading ladies like Grace Kelly and Kim Novak and Eva Marie Saint and Janet Leigh, he had a thing for blondes, didn't he?
Oh, didn't he?
He loved blondes.
Yes, he did. Well, a lot of you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not...
Oh, listen, no, I'm not knocking it. I'm
no.
just saying... Okay, we'll do some commercials, and then we'll get back to the flick in a minute. Oh, and do you mind if I read one more Camille Paglia quote from her book?
No, I love it.
This is from page 34. Just talking about you in the movie. Pulling up to the dock, she throws the looped hawser over the stanchion, which in a Hitchcock film, strangulation always being a leitmotif, ends up looking like a hangman's noose lassoing a penis. Tippi, now tell me that was not your motivation, okay?
Okay, it wasn't. Oh, Camille, come on. Oh, this is good, yeah.
That's, of course, Veronica Cartwright as the little girl. We've had Veronica on the show many times. We saw her in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We saw her in Alien. She was a child star, a teenage star, and an adult star. But tonight we have the star of The Birds in person, Tippi Hedren. And all right, I'm not going to read anything else from this book, from this Camille Paglia book. Don't worry. But it has a little picture here of the original poster for the movie, and it says on the poster, "Please do not see the end first." Like everyone was going to, like, watch the movie backwards or something. What was that about? Why did they put that on the poster?
Probably because Hitch didn't want you to see the end before, you know, like sometimes people come into a movie late and they, you know, they don't see it right away.
So in 1963, people would just watch the movie in any order? They would just, like, go in the middle and then watch the first part later?
Well, don't you ever do that?
No.
Well, you know, in Psycho, they didn't even let anybody in after it started.
Oh, I remember that,
Remember
too.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't really you, is it?
No, actually, that's Jessica Tandy. And,
why is it Jessica Tandy?
Well, you got me. But I don't know, they decided that that would be the perfect picture, so they put the green jacket on, which I wore. I think in that shot, she was wearing a gray jacket.
So this is Jessica Tandy's face, but it's supposed to be you. This like, well, we won't take a picture of Tippi. We'll just use the other girl in the movie. You know.
Oh, and there were a lot of me going, you know, screaming and all that sort of thing. But that really worked. I don't know.
Really?
You know,
that's a weird thing.
Jessica and I had the same kind of features. We were very, very similar.
Well, this was a rare film appearance for Jessica Tandy at the time because she didn't work in movies very much because she was the queen of Broadway. She had been the original Blanche Dubois in Streetcar. And, okay, well, we'll be back in a few minutes with more of The Birds, which was the 7th highest grossing Hitchcock film ever. And when they showed it for the first time on TV in 1968, it was the highest rated movie in television history up to that time, beat out both The Wizard of Oz and Ben-Hur. And we're getting pretty close to the part of the movie where you're going to find out why. Were there any sparks with Rod Taylor? Rod Taylor's a pretty good-looking guy.
Oh, he's a very handsome guy. Yes.
There's a little chemistry there with Rod?
I've had good luck with, you know, Sean Connery and Marnie, and so it's really good.
But Rod, in 1963, was there chemistry?
He was very attractive, yes.
And were you attracted to Rod? You're not going to tell me, are you?
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night and The Birds.
You know, somebody asked Alfred Hitchcock, how did you get the Birds to do all that stuff? And he said, we paid them well. We're here with the star of The Birds, the beautiful and talented Tippi Hedren. And so Tippi, Hitch sees you in a diet soda commercial. He invites you to the studio, and he signs you to a 7-year contract. And he actually told people that he was grooming you as the next Grace Kelly. How did you feel about that when he was telling everyone that?
I was so excited because I thought, where's my prince?
Yeah?
Yeah. I thought, oh boy, this is
You thought you were
really
moving
good.
to Monaco,
right?
Huh? I know that he gave you the full star treatment while you were making this movie in Bodega Bay. You had your own car and driver.
Yes.
And I'm not going to let you go on the Rod Taylor question. I happen to know that Rod Taylor was not allowed to ride in the same car with you. Hitch wouldn't allow that. What was that about?
But you know something, this is very interesting because basically all the leads in the films, they all have their own cars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple.
But it wasn't horribly scandalous in 1963 to be in the same car as your co-star? He didn't want you photographed together? Was that part of it?
It was very scandalous.
Well, he apparently cared about it. You know, I can't imagine that there were that many people, that many paparazzi in Bodega Bay to begin with, a little crab and salmon fishing town of about 250 people in Northern California. But how involved in your personal life did Hitch get? Didn't he tell you where to go and how to dress?
Oh, I wanted to control everything. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. What to eat, what to drink, who to see, who not to see.
Who to give interviews to. And
yeah,
all
absolutely.
That. And
total control.
And were you totally controllable?
No.
I know things were different then, you know, no, they didn't have like sexual harassment suits and everything. Did he ever put any pressure on you?
Pressure for what?
That kind of pressure.
No.
No? Okay. You're not saying much, Tippi. You're not saying much. This stuff is in the books.
Like pulling teeth, isn't it?
Okay, let's get back to The Birds after the ads. You don't have to talk about that.
Okay.
Your other Hitchcock movie was Marnie,
Yes.
right? Which one do you like better, The Birds or Marnie?
Well, you know, it's hard. It's very difficult to compare the two because they're so different. You know, The Birds was sort of a chase film, but Marnie was highly dramatic, and it was a subject that was really not talked about all those years ago.
Because you were a horse-obsessed, frigid kleptomaniac.
No, not a kleptomaniac, and that was wrong in the publicity. She was a compulsive thief. A kleptomaniac steals things. You know, she might, you know, pick up, you know, they just, you know, take things. But a compulsive thief plans. She was planning all of these, the intentions of literally stealing good amounts of money from the people that she worked for. Okay. And she took great glee in it, and it was fun for her to do this.
Well, it was a great flick, way ahead of its time, I think.
Absolutely. But it really just showed what happens to you as a child, how it, you know, later affects you as an adult. And people weren't looking at that so much in the 60s, and I think it was a difficult subject for people to broach.
Yeah. Okay. Be back in a minute. That was, of course, Jessica Tandy in her big emotional scenes, and your little smooch with Rod Taylor there, I always love that scene when he kisses you on the back of the neck before the more traditional kiss on the lips. Kind of an interesting choice, don't you think?
Good direction.
Yeah, that's the way he wanted to kiss then. Tippi Hedren is here with us, and all right, for the scene where the birds pour out of the chimney, they did force 2,000 bullfinches down through a chimney because Hitchcock wanted realism. He didn't want to use a bunch of match shots and camera tricks. And Tippi, I know you're an animal lover. I thought the ASPCA jumped all over your case if you went around throwing birds down chimneys and flinging them at people and tying their little thrashing bodies to child actors and everything, right?
Yeah, they would. Yeah. In fact, the Humane Society was there all the time. In fact, they were more concerned about the birds being tired than nobody cared about me.
Really?
But I have to tell you about that scene when they just gently, you know, put, you know, because I'm watching all of this too. They just, you know, just let the birds down. They just, you know, let them down through the fireplace and the chimney. And we thought they'd go flying around the room. And they sat on the hearth, and they would sit on the coffee table and on the arms of the chair, and that sort of thing. None of them flew. So we were thinking, what are we going to do? Fans. That would be good. But then our hair would fly around, so that wasn't going to work. And eventually, once the scene was edited, and we fought birds that weren't there. Yeah. We ended up doing that. You know, just pretending the birds were there and doing a lot of
So he did use some match shots and camera tricks.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was just for the press that he said, oh, I had to have the 2,000 real birds.
And any time the children were used, they were all mechanical birds.
I see. Wasn't there a trained raven that you guys had on the set who hated Rod Taylor?
Yeah, Corvus was his name.
And he would attack Rod Taylor every time he saw him?
Yeah, it was great. And then there was another one, his name was Buddy, and he was so sweet that he couldn't even be in the movie. He was so nice.
He wouldn't attack anybody?
But the bird trainer, Ray Berwick, was so wonderful. And I want to give you a just quick explanation of how good he really was and how much he cared. When we were doing the party scene with the children, he had trained 3 seagulls to take off from his arm, circle, dive bomb the kids, and come back to him. First one, fine, took off, circled, dive bombed the kids, came right back. Second one, same thing. The third one took off and didn't come back. Now, that wouldn't be a problem, except that working with the children, Ray very, very loosely wired the beak of the bird so that it wouldn't hurt the children, because the seagulls can be a little nasty. And so Ray Berwick said, Hitch, we have to just shut down. I have to find that bird. And he went out into Bodega Bay and did not come back until he found that bird.
Because he was afraid it would starve?
And it would have been a very brutal death for that bird. But that's the kind of man Ray Berwick was.
Yeah, you actually live on an animal preserve, right?
I do.
How did that happen?
It's called Shambhala, and it means a meeting place of peace and harmony for all beings, animal and human. But I did 2 films in Africa and became concerned about the animals in the wild and the diminishing numbers of them just because of encroaching civilization and sport hunting and, of course, worst of all, poaching.
So most of them are exotic animals?
Big cats and 2 fabulous African elephants.
All right.
It's so beautiful.
All right, some commercials and then back to the birds. And, of course, that was the great thing about Alfred Hitchcock, because someone asked him, what if bird lovers boycott this movie? And he said, oh, yes, I hope so.
Yeah, he would. That's perfect.
The old lady bird expert in the diner is Ethel Griffiths, who was 85 years old when she made this film, and she'd been retired for years. She was a leading lady of the English stage, and when Hitchcock was very young in the UK, and he remembered her from those days, and he found out she was still available, and he hired her to do that part. We're here with the star of The Birds, Tippi Hedren. Tippi, what was Hitchcock's process of filmmaking as far as the actors were concerned? Did you rehearse much? Because you were...
Well,
I was
a novice, you know.
Right.
So,
you were brand spanking new to movies.
Oh, yeah, but how lucky was I to have not only Hitch as my director, but he was my drama coach.
Oh, he was giving you lessons?
How lucky, you know? Yes.
And you were with this world-famous guy. Were you nervous around him?
No, not at all. No. No, in fact, I think had he not given me the assurance and the security that I would be able to do this, I don't think I could have done it, because almost everybody in Hollywood was really saying, you know, why did you give this part to an unknown? You know, not only an unknown, but she'd never done a film or any acting, you know, other than the commercials, you know. So I was under a lot of pressure, but if he hadn't given me that assurance, I never could have done it. Okay. I never could have done it.
Okay, now, Tippi, I hope you don't hate this story, too, because I'm trying to get you to talk about stuff and some things you don't want to talk about.
Oh, you can try.
Straighten out the record on this for us. What was the deal with Hitch giving your daughter a Tippi Hedren doll in a little coffin? Did he really do that?
I would love to straighten out that story.
Okay.
Hitch went to a great deal of effort to have this beautiful doll made. And in order to do this, I was called into the makeup room to have a mask done. Now, this was not unusual. In the makeup room, there were all masks of everybody. Elizabeth Taylor Charlton everybody. Everybody was up there. Marlon Brando. And so they did the plaster cast, and they put the straws up your nose so you can breathe, and it's really awful. And I just thought this was a normal thing. Well, what he did was he had Bob Dunn, who was my makeup man, make this doll that it was absolutely perfect. I mean, it wasn't like a caricature of me, you know, like most of the time when you see a doll of somebody, it looks like them, but it isn't exactly. This was absolutely perfect. It was my face, only in miniature. And it had the green dress on, and unfortunately, it was in a wooden box.
So in other words, he wanted to present you with a beautiful doll, but his idea of the way to present it was to put it in a coffin.
It wasn't a coffin. It was just a beautiful wooden box. It was really lovely.
Oh, it wasn't a coffin?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
How do these stories get started?
Hey,
Tippi?
don't ask me.
I'm just reporting
I
these
think
stories.
Hollywood is one of the most wonderful places you can. I hear more things about myself.
Yeah, okay.
That I never said, that I never did. Oh, you know, everybody. It happens
well,
to everybody.
So you can come here and you can deny these things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. But it wasn't. It was a gift to my daughter that was supposed to be lovely, and it just, you know, she just took one look at it and freaked out.
Oh,
you know?
she thought it was a coffin.
She just thought it was. I mean, I didn't. I just took it away from her and never. You know, we just kind of. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, things are going to get really out of control now as we continue with
oh, boy.
The Birds. She thought it was a coffin. Yeah. Okay, that's the story. Yeah. Thank you.
There you go. See?
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night and The Birds after these messages.
You know, Alfred Hitchcock was famous for working 9 to 5 and then forgetting about his films when he went home at night. But he admitted that when he was filming The Birds, he was tense and upset all the time. Something about this story really bothered him, and the critics who have written about it say that it is probably his most pessimistic film. Now, did you suffer any of those same effects, Tippi? Were you nervous or tense or stressed out while you were making this film?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Because of him, or just because of the whole experience?
No, you know what, yeah, the only time I was really, really tense was that, you know, that scene where I go up the stairs and go into that room and all the birds.
Yeah,
you know,
don't give it away, though. We haven't quite seen it yet.
Oh, so we should talk about that later?
Well, no, you can tell them that you were tense, when that, and then when it happens, it'll be better.
Yes. Well, you know why? Because they told me all through the time that we were filming that they were going to use mechanical birds.
Oh, and they didn't.
And which made me very comfortable because, you know, I had seen all the trainers with their thick leather gauntlets up to their shoulders and the scratches, and I had been scratched and, you know, that sort of thing. So knowing that it was going to be mechanical birds was very, very consoling.
Yeah.
And the morning that we were to start that film, the assistant director, Jim Brown, came into my dressing room on the set, and you know, we'd been longtime friends, and he couldn't look at me. He looked at the floor, he looked at the walls, at the ceiling. I said, "What's the matter with you?" He said, "The mechanical birds don't work," and out the door he went. Well, I just blanched white. I just went, oh, fine. Well, I went out onto the set, and they had no intentions of using mechanical birds. There was a cage built around the door that I go in, and there were boxes of of birds that their 3 prop men were going to start hurling at me. Now, you don't set that up.
They snookered you.
You don't. They did.
They kept you calm until they needed that scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
it was kind, though. It was a kind thing to do. Actually.
It was a kind thing, not to
sure,
tell you in
because I didn't
advance.
have to. I didn't
not
have
to tell you in advance that he was going to completely beat you up. Okay. Well, Hitchcock could have been nervous just because this was also the most complicated film he ever made. He used 1,400 shots in this film, which was twice as many as his average film, and about 1/4 of those were trick shots of some kind. One of which was not the exploding car, by the way. You were injured just watching the exploding car, weren't you?
I was, yes. My eyes got burned.
Yeah, and then the scene in the phone booth with all the birds attacking you there, didn't you get hurt shooting that?
I did. Yeah.
There are just so many.
The shatterproof glass, that was a keyword there. Shatterproof. No.
Okay.
No.
Well, we haven't even seen the worst of it, and I don't want to give anything away, so let's get back to the flick in just a sec. And also, I'm sure that in those days you had an excellent workers' comp plan, didn't you?
Yeah.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night and the Birds after these messages.
We're back here with the star of tonight's flick, Tippi Hedren. And Tippi, in that scene we just saw where you guys are all boarded up inside the house during the bird attack, Hitchcock did a very strange thing for him. He threw out the script. He decided that he had to get an emotional tone of that room that was exactly right, and it would all depend on what the actors were feeling precisely at that moment. So he had you improvise some of those moments, I understand. What was improvising for Hitchcock like?
Well, he rarely did that. You know, everything was very, very controlled all the time. So, actually, in one scene that we were, you know, it was supposed to be so tense, and the birds are all building up out there. He had a drummer come in with you know, a set of drums, and it started out with a very, very low, you know, kind of, and then he built up so that we would be able to get the tension.
Feel that rhythm?
Yeah, it was, you know.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. He was a brilliant director, actually.
Okay.
But he very rarely had anybody improvise.
A brilliant director, and this is his anniversary year.
Oh, and we've been celebrating for a year.
All kinds of celebrations.
Yes.
And we just got this Alfred Hitchcock edition of Clue celebrating his 100th birthday. It's pretty cool. And instead of Miss Peacock in the library with the candlestick, it has like Melanie Daniels. Actually, Melanie Daniels is Miss Scarlet. Miss Scarlet is Melanie Daniels from The Birds. I don't know if you can see this on here. And also, Mrs. Peacock is Marnie Edgar from Marnie. So there's only 6 characters in this game, and 2 of them are you, Tippi. I mean,
well,
it's like, I mean, one of them is Tony Perkins, 2 of them are you, and then there's 3 other Hitchcock characters.
Okay, where can I get this?
Would you do the honor of signing this for us? We'll get you one.
Oh, I'd be happy
I'm sure
to.
Clue will send you as many as you want. Parker Brothers.
I think, wait a minute.
Good grief.
This must be me.
You got no money for this, right?
No, I'm going to call them.
That's you, and that's you.
I'm going to call them. This doesn't look like me. Okay, this one sort of does.
Well, yeah, and the bird on the hand
And
gives
the bird
it
on
away.
that does give it away, doesn't it?
Okay.
It's sort of, can I, okay, right.
Yeah, go ahead and sign that. We're going to give this away on our website, so everybody should check it out. It's tnt.turner.com/JoBob. Or you can write to us at jobob@turner.com.
See what I put the birds in there all the time?
That is a great
Do you know how that happened?
signature
You know,
with the little birds flying around your name.
after
Do you always do that?
Well, I do, and it started out with you know, when you go to premieres and that sort of thing, there's always the fans out there, and they're always the same ones, and they always ask for your autograph. So at one time, I just drew a little bird, you know, a little, you know, one of those little things, and then didn't think anything more about it. The next premiere that I went to, same fans, and they always want the autographs, and I signed my name, and they said, "Where are the birds?"
Oh. So they
Word
can get $20
travels
extra
fast.
for it later when
You
they
bet.
sell it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd love for you to stay until the movie's over because we're going to watch this last segment here because what people are about to see now is probably the most controversial thing that Hitchcock ever filmed, and we can't talk about it till afterwards. So can you stick around just a little bit longer?
Oh, I have to. I can't wait.
Okay.
Yeah. What's
See,
he
if
going to
Hitchcock
ask
did this
now?
today, it would be Lawsuit City.
You bet.
I think it would be a lawsuit. That's
Yeah.
all I'm going to say.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Hollywood Saturday Night and the Birds after these messages.
And so Mitch, Melanie, Kathy, and Lydia drive into the distance, abandoning their house to the control of the birds. Okay, Tippi, tell us about that scene in the attic. First of all, first question, why does the character go up there by herself? Why would you do that?
I said that I asked that same question to Hitch. I said, Hitch, knowing, you know, what has happened to all of the people, the kids in the, you know, all these horrible things have been going on with the birds, why would she go up there? I mean, I'm not necessarily what do you call those?
A complainer.
Yeah, No,
But
no.
it's a valid
I said, why
question.
would she do that?
Right.
And he said, because I tell you to. I said, fine.
So?
It's sort of the same thing as your paycheck, you know, that kind of answer. But
Well, you do have to admit it's a little far-fetched for her to go up there alone, even if everybody else is sleeping. I mean, that's part of it is, you know, it's like the middle of the night and weird things happen in the middle of the night. On the other hand, I have to say that as you performed it, I believed it. I bought it. So the scene itself, though, took a whole week to shoot, I know, and you practically had a nervous breakdown. So what the heck happened?
Actually, it wasn't a nervous breakdown. It was just total exhaustion.
Okay.
Absolutely total exhaustion.
Well, I call that a nervous breakdown, but...
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So what happened? What was so terrible?
Well, they just kept hurling birds at me for 5 days, and you know I just had to fight them off as best I could, and
I assume they didn't have the little piece of wire around their beaks.
No, they did not. In fact, Cary Grant came onto the set on Wednesday. And we started Monday morning, Wednesday, and he said, I think you're the bravest lady I've ever met. And I said, well, I don't know if that's the word for it, you know, but by Friday I had fallen down on the floor, and they had put bands around my body with little elastics. And then when I put the dress on, they pulled the elastics through the holes in my dress, and then they tied the birds to me. So that they wouldn't, yeah, it's a wow, isn't it? They tied the birds loosely, you know, around their leg, and with the elastic they could move. It wasn't mean to the birds, you know. I mean,
no,
none
it was
of
just
us
mean
would.
to you.
Just to me, yeah. Where was my humane society? And one of the birds was tied up here, and he jumped up and kind of scratched me right on so close to the eye. I said, yeah, you know, this is enough. That's enough. And I got them all off of me, and I just started to cry. Just big, you know, tears.
And was that the end, or did you
do
more after
No,
that?
we didn't do any more. That was the end of it.
Oh.
That was the end of it. And everybody left. They just left me sitting there
They left you. They couldn't
crying,
stand to watch anymore.
No.
And so Hitchcock, he was criticized for going a little too far to get a realistic scene, but you've never criticized him. And you've never criticized him tonight. So, I mean, either he was a perfect man or you're a very classy lady.
I'm a very classy lady.
Okay. So, and one more fact. That was not the ending that Hitch originally wanted. Do you remember the ending that he had in mind?
He had several in mind. In fact, there was one evening where he called all of us in, and we all sat together, and he talked about different endings of the movie.
So he didn't even know.
And
you know,
and I think this is probably the first time ever that he really didn't have a plan as to what he wanted.
And it's really kind of a non-ending anyway. It's an ending that's not really an ending.
Joe Bob, they went off and everybody lived happily ever after.
Oh, okay. All right, I get it.
Of course.
So don't be depressed at the end of this movie. Tippi Hedren, thanks so much for being here. That's it for me, Joe Bob Briggs, reminding you, in the words of Confucius, passionate kiss like spider's web soon lead to undoing a fly. I have a couple... You like that one? Okay, I have a couple of bird jokes, actually. You'll appreciate these, Tippi. Did you hear about the time that Hillary Clinton goes into a pet shop and she sees this incredibly beautiful parrot in the pet shop? And she asks the manager, does this parrot talk? The manager says, yes. And Hillary says, well, why is this one only $50 and all the rest of them are $500? The manager says, well, ma'am, not everybody would want this parrot. He spent many years in a whorehouse and his language is just terrible. So Hillary says, well, she wants him anyway. So she gets the parrot back to the White House and she takes the cover off the cage and the parrot tilts his head to one side and he says, new house, new madam. And Hillary laughs, you know. And then Chelsea comes home. Chelsea comes home with a friend of hers. They come in the door and they look at the bird and the bird says, new house, new horse. And Hillary explains the bird's history and they both laugh. And then the president comes in and looks at the bird and the bird says, hi, Bill. Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die.
Oh, you're bad.
Have you heard about the new disease that's decimating pet birds across America? It's called chirpies. It's one of those tragic canarial diseases. The worst part is that it's untweetable.